Nardini Fire Equipment Company. My name is Shober, Vice President at Nardini Fire Equipment Company. I started with Nardini in 1992, filling fire extinguishers, and throughout the years, filling fire extinguishers, working in the shop, working with systems, working my way into sales, and then eventually into management in the year 2000. That's where it's brought me today. I've done quite a few seminars on UL 300 for various architects and engineers, insurance agencies. I'm open to do more of these. I've got some scheduled next week, also two scheduled next week. And what we're going to do in this program is I'm going to have some of the people with Nardini here just pass out some of these brochures. And these brochures have information on UL 300 on what Nardini Fire Equipment Company does. So it's got a list of the services that Nardini Fire Equipment Company can do for you. It's got a brochure on the UL 300, and it's got a brochure on the Piranha Fire System, which we may have some time to go over. We'll kind of go through a videotape, which is about 10 minutes. We'll do some questions and answers as far as to what information came about on the videotape. So when you get these folders, you can open them up, and we'll start the videotape, and then we'll talk a little bit more about UL 300 in general. Basically, UL 300 is the new standard for, or I shouldn't say new, I keep saying new, because I started these seminars after 1994. UL 300 came out in November of 1994. And up until this year, we haven't really seen a whole lot from the insurance industry, but this year we've seen a big push from the insurance industry for people to conform with UL 300, the standard. And a lot of this will be explained in the videotape, so I'm just going to let the videotape roll so I don't have to talk quite so much, and then we'll talk about the specifics when you guys open up your folders.
First sequence shows a fire test on a deep path fire following the new UL 300 test procedures. The new requirements state that a commercially available fire must be used with a minimum heat-up rate of 12 degrees per minute and a maximum cooling down rate of 5 degrees per minute. Also, the auto-ignition temperature of the cooking oil must be at least 685 degrees Fahrenheit. Until the oil ignites. Then it is allowed to burn for 2 minutes with the fuel source left on at full intensity. During the second minute of pre-burn, the flame gains intensity and increases in height until it actually surrounds the discharge nozzle. At the 2-minute mark, the system is actuated. During discharge, there can be no splashing of flaming cooking oil outside the perimeter of the appliance. The fire is extinguished in a matter of seconds, and the agent fills up a foam blanket that secures the liquid surface to prevent reignition. The foam blanket must secure the fire for at least 20 minutes according to the new standard. This second sequence shows a fire test following the older UL Subject 300 test methods. This less stringent test allows the use of mock-up appliances with no specified heat upgrades. And because the mock-up appliances are not insulated, they cool down very rapidly. Also, the required minimum auto ignition temperature of the cooking oil is 650 degrees Fahrenheit versus 685 with the new standard. And unlike the new UL test, the fuel source is immediately shut off after the fire ignites and the pre-burn is only 1 minute. Following the pre-burn period, the system is actuated. Again, the fire is quickly extinguished and the foam blanket is full. This test requires just a 5-minute security period, which can be more easily met because the lower temperatures and faster cool-down rates do little to degrade the foam blanket. This third sequence shows both fire tests simultaneously. Again, you'll be able to clearly see the significant differences in pre-burn time and flame intensity between the more stringent UL 300 test on the left and the previous test method as shown on the upper right. The added requirements to minimize the splashing of hot cooking oils also play a significant role in the longer extinguishment times and increased agent quantities used in today's UL 300 systems. The new UL 300 standard is clearly a more stringent test, which more closely simulates real-world conditions, not only as shown in these fire tests, but in the testing of woks, grills, ranges, charbroilers, and various other appliances. In this final sequence, a UL-approved water spray system is being tested using the same UL 300 methods that all wet chemical fire suppression systems must undergo. Once again, a 2-minute pre-burn is used on a commercial fire and the fuel source is left on until discharge. fire system does not achieve rapid extinguishment or security. The fire continues to burn and water continues to flow. More than 6.5 minutes later, the fire was extinguished.
Questions in regards to the videotape?
What kind of sprinkler head was that they used there? Was that the Grinnell EA1 head?
I understand it was UL listed for now E1 Protecto spray head. They used it was a UL listed, and that was the only UL listed sprinkler head for the protection of fryers. So that's the one that they, one of the things that they did is in promoting this is not necessarily promoting this, is showing this videotape isn't to show that sprinkler systems don't work, because sprinkler systems do put fires out. They're talking about water. When we talk about our systems, like a piranha system, we don't use the term water, we use the term mist. And water in general doesn't put grease type fires out. The EA1 head, back when it was tested, did put fires out and still would put fires out. If it was listed, it would put them out with the mist form, because mist takes away oxygen. And that's also with the piranha system, which we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about. It uses as a cooling effect, is they use that misting effect. The big things that changed and the things that the manufacturer stepped up to, the fire equipment manufacturers or stepped up to the plate, is that they're looking at appliance protection. They're looking at specific appliances. They're testing these systems now, whereas they used to with just a pan like they showed on there with no insulation. Now they're actually using the fryer that's insulated, that that's a lot more efficient, and so it retains a lot more heat for a longer period of time. And so in doing that, that's why UL 300 came out. I mean, they weren't, back when these systems, both water systems and chemical systems were manufactured, They were using mock-up appliances. They weren't using actual appliances. The other thing that came into big play was the use of vegetable fats versus the use of animal fats in these frying operations. And that came into play because all of us want to be more healthier. So when they started using the vegetable fats, they started using hotter temperatures so that they could cook your French fries and your fried foods faster. And so in using that, you had quicker heat up times and you had better appliances, and so they had to do something. I mean, with the dry chemical systems that were out there, they were pumping out the dry chemical, but they couldn't get all that dry chemical to sit on top of that fryer and secure that fire. So they had to come out with wet chemicals. When wet chemicals first came out, they were great with the animal fats. When the vegetable fats came out, they needed to add more chemical to them, and that's where UL 300 came in. And that's where the manufacturers went in, and that's, when UL 300 came out and said, hey, this is what we have to do to meet the industry, the equipment industry challenges, with the new fats that we're using, with the vegetable fats and the new appliances. And it's a constant battle with the fire equipment people trying to keep up with the people that are manufacturing the equipment. Questions in regards to that?
It sounds like dry chemicals out, wet chemicals in. If you've got an existing dry chemical, is it as simple as switch the tank or?
No. Basically what you're doing is you're switching the tank, such as the tank here. The components, a lot of the components are the same. So you're using a tank, this one holds liquid versus dry chemical, but you're using smaller piping. So you're going from dry chemical piping, which is larger for volume, down to wet chemical piping, which is narrower for your liquids. So you're using 3/8 inch piping. So you are, when we're doing retrofits on restaurants, we're taking out all the existing piping. We're usually taking out all the existing detection. And the main reason for that is a lot of these dry chemical systems were put in the early 70s. And we don't want to be using the existing detection if it's got a bunch of grease and stuff inside the conduit, because we're using mechanical detection. So we replace the detection, replace the piping. You get a new Automin type device, which in turn is an entire new system.
Is there, with UL 300, is there an upper limit as far as capacity, how much oil a fryer or whatever can take? How large of a device?
How large of a fryer?
Yeah.
Is that fryer pot, the size?
There is, each manufacturer tested with certain sizes of cooking surfaces, and what they do is they measure the oil, the pot that the oil sits in. Now, I think the largest pot that they can do is 6 square feet is what it's listed for. And so what you do is multiple protection. What they're doing is they're taking that 6 square feet and they're saying, okay, you can do 24 inches with this nozzle, another 24 inches with this nozzle, another 24 inches with this nozzle. So you're using multiple nozzles up to that 6 square feet. And that's the largest that they tested for. And so it isn't specific for larger applications, which we typically don't run into.
I mean, yes, both of those things, it was a 2-minute pre-burn. It seems specified actually one time test. Said having one normal pressure, had they would have to be size. So you have to heat them, whatever the temperature we had, it's even longer.
I think when you all was actually doing the test, what they were looking at is what could possibly happen if this doesn't go off, if the restaurant, the gas won't get shut right away, or if they really retained a lot of heat. So they had to come up with some sort of a parameter, how many minutes should we do it? And I think before it was a minute, and they upped it to 2 minutes on the pre-burn. So they wanted that fuel to sit there and burn for a period of time until they started doing it. So they're not taking it, and then they shut the fuel off and try to put the fire off. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the thought was on that. Yep.
I don't know what the thought was either, but I guess I speculate that it might be because you're testing a clean head, and yet in the hood system above a grease fryer, grease producing device, they get coated with a very thick coating, and depending on how frequently they're cleaned, maybe they had to penetrate the coating.
It's possible. One of the things they discovered was that the fusible links themselves are not an exact science. You know, each link has got a different temperature, but how long it takes to get to that temperature, depending where the link is in the hood, where it's in the airstream, all of that comes into play. And you can have a fusible link sit there for 2-3 minutes before it goes. So that's why they wanted a 2-minute pre-burn. Typically, a link will go within a minute's time, but not always. So the longer pre-burn, the more real life.
Yep. I do have some samples that I'll pass around of what the links are like. They're all the 360-degree links. Another thing that UL300 did is it looked at how they set the links, and they used to set the links within so many inches of each other, and now what they do is they put a link over each one of the appliances. So depending upon the manufacturer, it tells you which appliance and you refer to which link. So like if you got a fryer, you have like a 500-degree link over it. And I'll pass a couple of these links around. This is the 500-degree link. And then they've got the 360-degree link, which sits over the top of your lower temp appliances, your griddles. All the links are gated, so that if you, when you're doing your servicing, you've got up-to-date links when you're installing them. And the servicing of these systems is done every 6 months, and at the point in time when they service them is when they replace the links. And so you've always got, if the people are keeping up with their servicing, they're going to have new links every 6 months. Any other questions as far as the links temperatures go? Some of the information, if you open up your folders, it's right behind the colorful UL300 in most of the folders, and it just has UL300 on the front of it. This particular document was done by a local insurance company, and the insurance company is going through UL300, how it developed, why the older systems are failing, and how do we underwrite against these problems. And if you look at the last page on how we underwrite against these problems, it talks about the methods to determine whether the system is UL300 or not. And one of the determining methods is it wet or dry chemical. What Nardini started after the UL300 came out, we started taking and putting these, and this was mainly for the insurance and for the authorities having jurisdiction. I'm sure, Kim, I don't know if you've seen any of these on any of your boxes yet, but we've taken a step by putting these on the front of our customers' boxes that we're doing servicing on to make sure that people know that their system isn't UL300. So all the dry chemical systems that are not UL300, and then the liquid systems that are non-UL300 are getting these stickers put on. We started with dry chemical, now we're looking into the liquid systems. So if you see this on the front of a box, or if it looks like someone scraped it off, something on the front of the box may possibly have been this, what you need to do is just take a look at the tags. As far as the insurance industry goes, the authorities have jurisdiction. The tag will pretty much tell you if it's a UL300 listed system or not. You write that right on the tag, along with putting this on the box. And basically what we'll do is we'll stick it right on the front there, or at the pull station, depending upon the type of system it is. Any other questions on UL 300 in general? Okay. One of the UL 300 systems that came out, UL 300 came out in 1994, November. ANSO, one of the manufacturers that Nardini represents, came out with a hybrid system of UL 300 called the Piranha system. And instead of showing the videotape on the Piranha system, I'm going to show a slide presentation so I can go through what the benefits of the Piranha system are, and we can look at it a little bit closer. Definitely big enough. Can everybody see it? Turn the lights down a little bit, maybe. A little bit.
Stick to the camera.
Yeah, I might have to have the lights down a little bit more, Bill.
You can figure it out, you can do it.
Last one. There we go. Here's kind of the basics of the Piranha system. It's a fixed pre-engineered type, cartridge operated, automatic using fusible link detection, provides multiple coverage, overlapping and appliance protection, expanded system protection, twice the coverage versus single conventional systems. I'm going to pass some of these components around as you're looking at them. This is the cartridge that they're talking about. Just so you can physically hold and see these things. The system employs two distinct agents. Wet agent for fast flame extinguishment and securement, and water for rapid cool down. Under the UL 300 parameters, the fire has to be put out with the chemical that's provided. So the system is designed for the fire to be put out with the wet agent. And then after the wet agent is depleted, the water spray part of it comes on for the cooling, the rapid cool down time. So we're talking about water and wet chemical. Both excellent extinguishing agents. Rapid cool down cools hot surfaces 15 times faster. No open flames to contend with. Complements wet agent systems, flame extinguishment seconds. Foam blanket secures against reflash. Wet chemical, new agent formulation, non-toxic and corrosive, patent protected. Rapid extinguishment in seconds. Wet chemical securement forms a foam-like blanket, the pores allows heat release. Appliance interchangeability, as we'll see as we go along here, you'll see that you can change appliances from one place to another very easily. Because the lineup, because what happens in a restaurant, if you're in restaurants, is they have a tendency to, I don't know if it's the season or the type of day it is, they change appliances quite often. And the problem that we have from the fire equipment industry is keeping up with that. From both the water side of things, where they had the EA1 nozzle over the top of the fryer. Well, one day the fryer was under one part of the hood, the next day it was under another part of the hood. And it seemed like the people in the restaurant didn't know that the fryer had to be under that particular part of the hood to be protected properly. And because all the nozzles
I'll pass some nozzles around, basically look alike. You can't expect the cooks to be able to figure out which nozzle, what appliance goes under what nozzle. There's 3 different sizes. The one that I've got up here is a Piranha 7. It holds 1.5 gallons, and then there's a Piranha 10 and a Piranha 13. And you can run those in different sequences or all together. So you can run Piranha 13s, 3 of them together off of one water line, Piranha 10s, 3 of them together off of one water line, or Piranha 7s, or you can run the Piranha 7, 10, and 13. Any 3 bottles off of one inch water line. Discharge nozzles, 2-inch styles versus current 14. So with current systems, UL 300 systems, you've got anywhere from 12 to 14 different nozzles. With the Piranha system, you've got 2 different nozzles. The one nozzle is attached to a swivel, that would be your AP nozzle, appliance and plenum nozzle. The other nozzle would be your DL nozzle for low proximity hoods, where the hoods are low, and then for your ductwork. So the D is for the ductwork, the L is for the low proximity. Detection devices are using fusible link detection, and then they're also using fuel shut-off devices for gas and electric. Meets the NFPA 17, the NFPA 96. NFPA 17, which is the wet chemical extinguishing agents, 96, which is the ventilation and fire control protection. Once again, fusible links. I'll pass around a remote pull station and a fuel shut-off device. I've got a mechanical fuel shut-off device. There is an option also for the electric fuel shut-off device. Tell me if I hit you in the eye with a beam. So just the code and standards again. UL 300 standard, of course. UL standard 2092 for pre-engineered chemical system units. And then UL standard ORD 1254.6 for water-assisted wet chemical extinguishing systems. Pre-engineered type. Meets the codes and standards for the ASSE standard 1001, the IMA PO 1397. This is going to go into the components, which I've passed some of them around that you've seen. This is the Ansilex. Once again, non-toxic, non-corrosive, protected. Forms a blanket, allows heat to release. This is the ottoman, which I have up here. This is the main firing mechanism, and then you can add 2 of these onto it for one water line. Here's the inside of it, which you can also see here. This is the releasing device. You'll have one of these, and then you'll have additional bottles that will also have water lines tied to them. This is what the agent is stored in. Water component. This area right here, it's probably easier to see it on this picture, is where we do our testing for our pressure. And we have to have a minimum of 30 psi at this point right here with a 25-foot hose attached to it. And the 25-foot hose basically simulates all the nozzles that can be in that one bottle of piping. So it's taking into account all the drops that could be on the one bottle, the plenum nozzles, and the duct nozzles that could be on one bottle. And that could be 7 nozzles, 10 nozzles, or 13 nozzles.
What's your water source in that crowd?
Water source is either potable water or sprinkler water. If the building is sprinkled, typically we're using the coming off the sprinkler system. If the building is not sprinkled, then we're coming off the potable water supply. This tank right here, which is the same as this one up here, is what we store the
agent in once again. The 3 different size tanks. The cartridges which I've passed around. These cartridges hold the pressure which, when the cartridge is punched, fills the bottle with the pressure, and then when that cartridge is empty, the bottle, the agent storage bottle will also be empty, and in that point in time, that's when the discharge of water starts. These are the nozzles which I've passed around. This one here would be the AP nozzle, this would be the DL nozzle. Once again, appliance and plenum nozzle, duct and low proximity nozzle. They've got 2 different nozzle caps. One's a rubber nozzle cap, which works in most applications, but there is also an option for a metal nozzle cap, which would be used in the protection of, like your char boilers, where they've got the open flame shooting up, or in the case of a upright type boiler where we're pointing the nozzle into the unit. Quick seals. We've got some quick seals with. These are where we make the liquid tight penetration to the hoods. So when we're doing our retrofits, we're also replacing these quick seals. A lot of the pre-UL 300 systems didn't have quick seals, and so what they were doing is just punching through the hood. And the issue with that is that the grease would get around the pipe, and that would be a point for the fire to get out of that hood area. These are the fusible lengths and the different temperature ratings that are available. 500-degree length ML style, 360-degree length K style. And once again, you notice right there they are dated. This particular one was dated in 1998. Pulley elbows, these are where we run our cable through for our mechanical gas valves and for our detection lines. These are pulley tees if we're running more than one pull station. These are the 2 different pull stations. We typically use the one on the left here. These are the gas valves, which I've sent one of them around. These are the electric gas valves that are available. And this is the reset relay that goes along with the electric gas valve. It's the way of manually resetting. Mechanical gas valve, basically you have to go to the gas valve and lift it up to reset it. With an electric gas valve, the electrician also has to install a manual reset relay. And what that does is that the person that goes and pushes that button is telling the gas valve that, yes, I want to turn the gas on. It isn't an automatic thing that when you switch the panel on, that your gas automatically comes on, so you don't have free-flowing gas throughout the building. They've got the electrical switches. These are for interconnecting to make a bare shutdown so you don't have fresh air blowing on the fire. Interconnected to shut any electric appliances down. And also possible gas valves if you're using the electrical gas valves, and fire alarm. The fire alarm connections are required in the particular city that you're working in, or in the particular building that you're working in. This is the water pressure testing device. This is the device that goes into the box right here to test to make sure that we've got our minimum pressure for the water, either on the sprinkler side or the potable water side. This is the nozzle aiming device. This is similar to the one that I've got at the end of this nozzle right here. This is the newer style, and I'll pass this around when I'm done. This is to ensure the proper placement of the nozzle. When we're placing these nozzles with these specific types of equipment, the manufacturer is telling us, hey, you've got to put this nozzle down, and you've got to center this nozzle over the top of the fryer. Over the top. And what that's doing is it's giving our technicians the capability to, hey, this is the point where that nozzle's got to be pointing at. It's not just an estimate. water shut-off devices. I brought the lockable one, which they show here. We do have some cities that are requiring the monitored water valve. Nardini doesn't promote one or the other. Both of them do their job. The monitored one, of course, involves a little bit more electrical work. The monitored one can be tied into shut off an electric gas valve if the water's turned off, can be tied into an alarming device if the water is shut off. The lockable one just stays locked, and so the water should never be shut off. Comments in regards to anything so far? Here's a picture of a hazard zone. This is cooking appliances. These would typically be 2 fryers, a griddle, and a charbroiler. This would be your gas valve down here. This would be your Ansel or Piranha Ottoman, your pull station here. This would be your nozzle configuration, which you can see the pipe coming out here. Overlapping protection. This shows a little bit better how the overlapping protection works. Each nozzle overlaps the next, so it doesn't really matter what appliance is where. There are some exceptions, and I think the next few slides will show those. This is the specific type of protection where we're putting a nozzle into a upright charbroiler, and this is one area that UL 300 wanted to address because the faster that we pick up that fire or put that fire out with an agent, the better, the less chance of damage. And so by putting this nozzle at the tip of here, there's a fire inside there and it's detected at the hood. This is going to saturate the inside of that charbroiler and put that fire out very quickly. This is one of those appliances that to a cook seems fabulous, to a fire protection contractor it doesn't seem so fabulous. So the fire equipment manufacturers came up with this nozzle, and that's one of the reasons, as you saw, that the nozzle has the swivel on it, so that we can specifically install that nozzle and point it into the opening, because the grease is going to be sitting down in here. This would be called a tilting braising pan or a tilting skillet. Now the manufacturers of the systems, basically, when we install these, we have to protect this appliance like it's a large fryer. And that the reason for that is that they could fill this appliance with grease and they could use it as a fryer. And so we're protecting it towards worst case scenario. Once again, we come in 11.5 inches from the end of the hood, and then we place our nozzles every 25.5 inches in between. And that gives us the overlapping on the high proximity. The duct nozzle, the DL nozzle, on a rectangular duct, 100 inches perimeter, a circular duct, 32 inches diameter. Length, unlimited. Plenum protection, we run a nozzle every 11 feet throughout the plenum, which is the area behind the filter bank. This is how the system operates. You've got your PRX or your firefighting agent in here. You've got your cartridge in here, water supply up in here, water flow valve down in this area. Cartridge is pressurized via the fusible length or the manual pull station pull. Agent starts, pressure goes into the bottle and the agent starts coming out. As soon as the agent comes down to the bottom, the water flow part of it starts in. As you'll notice here, the agent is almost all the way out of the top of the bottle, and the water still isn't into the bottle. And so the agent has to be fully pushed out of the bottle before the water is introduced into the bottle, and that's for backflow type reasons. Once the agent is totally out of the bottle, the water goes into the bottle. Once again, either the potable water or the sprinkler water. And then the pressure of the water via that 30 psi to 100 psi is what pushes that up and out through the nozzle network. And then if the water valve is closed in the closed position, there's no pressure inside of here. There's just the water in the line here and the water sitting in the tank. This is when the system is back in its reset position. That's it. I'm going to pass this particular nozzle around with the nozzle unit device on it. Basically, it's just two pieces. It's a drop with the swivel nozzle on it, and then we just slip this right over the top. And to turn it on, if you like to turn it on, you just turn the nozzle, and then you get your red light where you're pointing at. So I'll pass that around. Look at that. How am I doing on time? Questions in regards to UL 300 or the Piranha circulating system?
Water cartridge, and then just pressurize the tank similar to like a fire extinguisher.
I guess that's kind of Ansell's patent. That's how they did their R112 system. They don't have this big pressurized container. You got this small pressurized, and they don't have the big thing hanging on the wall. You got the small ones that, that punctures and then fills that up with the pressure. I don't know if that's just a design. Right?
One advantage of having the cartridge operated as opposed to pressurized too is maintenance costs. Once it's pressurized, you have different maintenance issues that have to be addressed, like tests and internal inspections, where with the cartridge you just have to go the test that's required as opposed to every 5, 6, or 12 years.
You've got a higher cost cylinder, you've got a much different valve assembly because of the retention of the pressure, but able to open up and deliver the gas to the agent.
It's the life of the phone.
You mean as far as just sitting in the tank itself? 12 years.
The life is really indefinite. It's just that NFPA requires hydrostatic testing of the cylinder every 12 years. So at that time, we're required to replace the agent.
With that swivel nozzle, once you direct it to the back fire or wherever you're you tap it or something, it's not going to swivel around.
Well, you just tighten it up and then it holds tight inside of there. It's just inside of the socket. And so once you tighten that nozzle up, then it's not going to swivel anymore. Once you get the thing, and some of the local authorities, I'm not sure Tim, if you get it, put it into your city, Piranha systems. But some of the local authorities, like in Bloomington, they'll ask us to put the nozzle unit device on. When we do the final test after we put a system in, they'll look and see where all the nozzles are pointed down on, and then they'll have us tighten them right there. So that they're assured that they're in the right placement. So when we're doing our, and then also when we do our 6-month service on the system, we're also checking to make sure that that's happening, because there is a tendency for the cook to want to reach out there and try to push something around. Or it's amazing what these people in the industry of cooking will do to get these nozzles out of the way. Any other questions in regards to the UL 300 Piranha fire system?
How often do you have to provide extra backflow prevention for the water source of the panel?
Nardini and the manufacturer, Ansell, went to the state board for plumbing, and they agreed that at the state level that there was no additional backflow prevention that was necessary. The main reason for that was is that all the nozzles are open into the atmosphere, so there's nothing that's closed. And all the agent, as we showed in the slide projecting, has to be out of the bottle before the water is introduced to the cylinder. So they did put a backflow prevention device, and that device is right here, and it's called an atmospheric vacuum breaker. And although that device wouldn't be considered a good device in a lot of systems for that, the state agreed that for this particular device and the way it was designed, they signed off on the fact that they could use that as their backflow prevention. Now, does that mean that every municipality allows that? No. In some municipalities, they do allow up to the equivalent of an RPZ valve on the line. When we go to the city and we say, well, here's how it works, here's how we see it, and they say, well, let's go with the highest form of protection, which is an RPZ valve, then we make sure that we've got the proper pressure with our water. And if we don't have proper pressure with the water, then what we end up doing is running a on-demand pressure pump to the system. And we have had to do that in some instances.
That only pertains to where we're using the domestic water
Yeah.
supply.
In most cases, that's just on the domestic side.
Sprinkler system connection wouldn't require that. It only requires a strainer. And the water demand on this system as it pertains to sprinklers is typically, isn't it a 3-cylinder arrangement? Has a flow equivalent of approximately 1 sprinkler.
One sprinkler head, yeah.
You can do a lot of protection with what would be the flow rate of 1 sprinkler head.
Some of the other advantages that I didn't get into too much on the slide projection is the duct protection. The way that the wet agent fire protection systems protect the duct is with a single nozzle into the opening of it. And what that allows us to do is when we service and we pull all the filters out, we can actually see that nozzle. We'll actually take that nozzle off and we'll put a pin through it and we'll actually clean that nozzle. And with the fire protection systems that come off the water side, if they're protecting the ductwork throughout, you're running a nozzle every 10 feet on your horizontal. And then you're having your inspection points where you have to get into the duct. And in a lot of cases, that's going to be an access panel that's not only, for cleaning, but it's going to be to get in to look at that head and then clean that head. But it's, how hard is it to get up there into that ductwork to get at that head to clean it, and how often is that done? Is one of the issues, and that's where the wet agent manufacturers, the chemical system manufacturers have kind of stepped up to the plate and said, okay, we've taken into account that people are swapping appliances around. We've taken into account that this nozzle will cover this particular appliance, this nozzle will cover this particular appliance, this nozzle will cover this much ductwork at this size. And so it's a lot more specific. And there were a lot more. UL 300 really was designed for specific appliances. Sticking that nozzle inside of that upright boiler, that's going to put that fire out a lot faster. And as you can see in the videotape, the water system put the fire out. And it didn't have an issue with putting it out, it's just the amount of time it took to put the fire out and how it went about putting that fire out. And as far as the rolling flame and so forth. And so what we're looking at is the quality of fire protection, and I think that's what you all was looking at, is how can we most effectively deal with the equipment manufacturers, the use of vegetable oil and its heat-up rates, and the use of the new appliances in their heat retention. And that's where UL 300 comes in. And like I said, the drive for UL 300 now is coming from the insurance agents. And that's where we're seeing it, on a daily basis, insurance agents giving us calls, asking us, is this system UL 300 compliant? So that's what's driving our industry to better itself and to install these types of systems.
What's the cost on something like a system like that, typical application?
Typical application, for instance, I'll just leave, I believe that a Piranha 7 would do about an 8-foot hood with overlapping protection. And you're probably looking at a budget of about $2,500. That's installed. There are some additional costs. The sprinkler contractor's got to bring in the water supply, but like I said, it's the water demand. Basically what they're doing is they're coming off a pipe that's in that general area, and then they're putting a strainer in the line, and then they're putting one of those, either that lockable water valve or that monitored water valve in the line. Electrical requirements are basically the same. I mean, as fire protection systems have evolved, obviously, you put a fire alarm system in, you got to hook up to a fire alarm system. If the local authority wants you to tie that water valve in to shut off the gas or to shut off the electric, you may have some additional costs with that, depending on how that local authority wants that system put in. Could affect that cost a little bit further.
I'd like to make one additional comment. Those of you who are familiar with the old dry chemical systems, the nozzles were required to be much closer to the appliances. So it wasn't unusual to walk into a restaurant and see the nozzles pushed away so that the 6-foot 3-inch cook that they had wouldn't hit his head on the nozzle. All of the wet chemical systems, the nozzles have a variety of heights that they can be, but generally speaking, they can be mounted much higher, so we're having much less trouble with walking into a restaurant and having the nozzles pointed away from the application.
That's once again another advantage of the Piranha system. If you look at the majority of the applications, all the nozzles are at the same height. Unless we're putting a nozzle into something specifically like the upright type char boilers. So we're not having that issue when you go in initially and look at a hood that's got a Piranha system in it. A lot of times, if you step back, you won't even see the nozzles. They'll be up on the edge of the hood. Like I said, the Piranha system is, when we put a Piranha system in, we sleep better at night. Because we know that all these appliances are put on wheels. And we know that these appliances, because they're put on wheels, are pulled out to be cleaned or various other maintenances. And when they get pushed back underneath the hood, are they in the same spot? Or are they pulled out a little bit, or where are they? So that overlapping protection definitely gives the insurance industry and the local authorities a lot more confidence that the system's going to work properly. But the standard is UL 300, and that is putting a wet agent down on top of the fire that's sufficient enough to put that grease fire out.
Does the Piranha address the issue of back shelves on range tops and grills?
Yes, and the way it does that is you'll bring your nozzles out a little bit further, and you'll use your nozzle aiming device, and you'll point it at, like you say, that's another thing. We go in to do an installation, we've got all these nozzles placed in the line, and all of a sudden, here come the shelves. We've got the capability, and you can also do that with the R102 and the Kitty and the different UL 300 systems. Most of them do have the capability of putting a swivel type nozzle on it, so that we may have to elbow back, but we can elbow forward to the hood and then point at the direction. For instance, a 4-burner range, we have to point it, we have to take that nozzle aiming device and point it at the middle of the 4 burners. 2-burner range, the middle of the 2 burners. And so, it's very specific. It isn't just put something here, put something here, and put something here. And that's with the R102 and those types of systems. With the Piranha system, once again, you're going to see that the line is going to be like a nice straight line going down, with the exception of the upright type boilers where we're pointing the nozzles into those types of devices. And then those we're using those metal nozzle caps, so that the reason behind the nozzle caps is that you're keeping that orifice where you're going to have the mist come out of clean. And so that when we go in to do our servicing, the nozzle should be clean. If the nozzle cap's missing, put a new nozzle cap on. And so we're trying to keep that clean. For instance, like on a sprinkler head, there isn't really something to keep the grease off of that sprinkler head. Okay, I think I've hopefully explained UL 300. One of the other things that I need to, since I brought it, I better talk about it, the K-class fire extinguisher. We're in the line of the HJs and the insurance people. This is the extinguisher that's required by NFPA to be inside the restaurant. And this is the sign that's required to be put along with the fire extinguisher. And I'll pass the sign around, but what the sign says is in case of appliance fire, use the extinguisher only after the fixed suppression system has been activated. And I passed around one of the manual pull stations, and someone's got that right there. And basically what they want you to do is pull the manual pull station before they activate the fire extinguisher. The reason for that is not only do you have electricity running through, you'll shut that electric off, you'll shut that gas off, and so you're not fighting a fire that's got a bunch of fuel on it. And so what you're doing is you're shutting off your gas, shutting off your electric, you're possibly turning on the turning off the make-up air. Your quick vents are coming on to exhaust any of the smoke from the fire, and then your alarm system is going off. And so that if you can't put the fire out, someone else is going to show up to help assist you in putting that fire out. And so they're using extinguishers in the kitchen, such as the K-class, as a second form of defense. Once again, advantage of wet agent systems, you've got the quick pull of that activating that system, or the automatic form. So I mean, if the fire's too big, the person runs out, physical link breaks, the system goes. But it's putting that fire out quickly that's going to create less damage in the restaurant, less casualties. Save the insurance company and the owner money. Once again, there is some discussion in regards to this sign, because there are still quite a few sprinkler systems, and how do you activate a sprinkler system manually before you use the extinguisher? And I don't have an answer for that, with the exception of a large hammer. Basically, the foam in this particular extinguisher is the same foam that's inside of this one. Other manufacturers have other types of foam. The rating on it is A and K. A is for paper and wood, K is for kitchens, and they made it a different color than most fire extinguishers because they kind of want to make it a no-brainer for the cook. Which fire extinguisher do I use in the kitchen? You use the stainless one. So he doesn't have to worry about, do I use the red one? Because all of the fire extinguishers were red, or years ago they were yellow, a bunch of other colors. But basically, they're making it look a little bit different so that the person in the kitchen knows which one that they're supposed to use. And it's required to have one of these for every, I believe it's 30 feet of cooking line. So if you have more than 30 feet of cooking appliances, you have to have two of them. Or if you have a different area, then you'd have to have another one. So you have two different areas.
So that comes out as a mist?
That also comes out as a mess foam.
Yeah. 6 liters.
This one's 6 liters, yeah. Questions in regards to the fire extinguisher part of it? Basically, when we're quoting systems, we're quoting the fire extinguisher within their system, so that they have both of them. And then we're relying on the local authorities or the insurance people to require in existing restaurants that have UL 300 systems to step up to the plate and require the owners and operators to require. And most cities are requiring K classes now. And they put it in writing, so.
The NFPA 10 does not allow the use of dry chemical portable extinguishers in a restaurant. You have to have a K-class extinguisher. Until the city adopts the current NFPA code, it's not being enforced, but most cities are adopting it already.
Once again, the main reason for it, less cleanup. I mean, you're pointing a misting thing, and instead of pointing a dry chemical. Point a dry chemical, you mean you shut your whole kitchen down. You point the mist at it, your foam product at it, you're not going to ruin everything, ruin all your food in your kitchen. So I mean, there's some huge benefits to it on that side. Plus you get the cooling effect and you get the security.
Carl, in like the Prana system where you get your wet agent, what's the, I guess call it the shelf life, lack of better term, same like with the extinguishers too. Say if they're not used like for 3-4 years, they start breaking down or deteriorating inside.
I don't know what, the manufacturer has informed us that there is no breakdown of it over a period of time, but every 12 years on, when the hydrostatic test comes up, we do replace the chemical. And so we take all the chemical off and replace it with new chemical. At 12 years on the system part of it, on the extinguisher part of it, it's every 5 years. And so although there's not a proven breakdown, we're still replacing the chemical at those intervals on the Piranha system and other wet agent systems also.
So the dry chems are power of the cell. You have to beat on it a little bit to get the power to go for really. Have that issue.
Yeah, we don't have that issue. Why? Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the time to spend. Hopefully, you've all learned something. Like I say, we can do these seminars for any number of people. We can get more in depth. You can come out to our facility and visit us. We can show you the components. We can bring you to one of our installations and show you how it looks in real life. We've got many customers in many cities that have looked at different UL 300 systems that we put in, and we're proud of what we do. So, if you guys have any further questions, the people that I've got here, just to go through them real quick. Of course, Tom Nardini, who works in all different types of sales, is myself. Scott Landy, which specializes with our fire alarm systems. Chris Jenner, which specializes with our clean agent systems, if you have any questions in regards to that afterwards. Marilyn Brummer, who specializes with our fire extinguisher and cabinet business. Randy Scott also specializes in kitchens and portables, fire extinguishers. And Richard Duman specializes in the restaurant fire protection systems. I think I forgot anybody. But if you guys have any questions in regards to any type of fire protection, design, insurance requirements, please feel free to give us a call. We've got our number in my card on the inside of most of these folders, and I'm sure that our rest of our representatives would be more than happy to give you their cards. Thank you very much. Hope you have a nice day.